RFK Jr. could move from being an independent candidate to potentially joining ranks with the Libertarian Party. Now, during an interview on CNN, RFK said it was, quote, something that we're looking at when asked if he was still pursuing that avenue to get on the ballot. Let's watch.
Is it possible that you will seek, as you are running as an independent, you will seek still to be the Libertarian candidate, which would assure you getting on all 50 state ballots?
That's something that we're looking at. We have a really good relationship with the Libertarian Party. I'm going to be speaking at the California Libertarian Party convention. I think it's next week or maybe in a couple of weeks. And then we're talking about me speaking in New York.
Now, as the independent candidate weighed his options on how best to get to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, he also revealed in a separate interview with News Nation that the Trump team had reached out to him to discuss a potential VP slot, but that he turned down that offer. RFK Jr. told News Nation, quote, "I would not take that job. I'm flattered that President Trump would offer it to me, but it's not something that I'm interested in."
RFK also had some choice takes for his younger supporters. Lock your parents in a room and force them to listen to Joe Rogan. Let's take a listen.
What we're finding is if they, the young people are getting their information from long-form interviews, from podcasts, from other alternative interviews. So they're doing critical thinking and they're not locked into these orthodoxies. And somehow, if you're young and you have parents, you need to lock them up somewhere and make them listen to a Joe Rogan podcast.
So, interesting. Apparently, RFK Jr. says that not Trump himself, but the Trump surrogates got in touch about a VP slot, and he turned them down.
I'm not especially surprised by that. This is a man, I feel like this has already been memory hold, a man who was fully running as a Kennedy Democrat as of October. Yeah. So, the liberals are characterizing him as MAGA and right-wing and all of those things, but I do think it ignores kind of a core part of who he is, an environmental lawyer for 30 years.
Oh, you say you're not surprised that he would turn it down?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying you're not surprised that he got offered.
No, I'm not surprised that he would turn it down. He's a Kennedy Democrat, who's an environmental lawyer for 30 years, and who has, as part of his platform, canceling student debt. I mean, he doesn't tick all of my boxes as a progressive, but his weird sort of charm is that there is a kind of a grab bag for everyone, but that grab bag does still have a lot of more left progressive items in it that frankly appeal to a lot of independents, but would not be a good fit alongside Donald Trump.
So he had conversations with the Libertarian Party back in the summer when he was still running as a Democrat within the Democratic primaries against Joe Biden. And there was a lot of speculation about him becoming the Libertarian Party candidate. He met with Libertarian Party leadership. We've interviewed Angela McArdle, who's the chair of the party, on the show before. She is, I would characterize her as very enthusiastic about him in general, happy to see, his opposition to COVID mandates, and she thought maybe he was coming just more fully into the Libertarian coalition writ large. Then, obviously, he decided to run as an independent, not specifically for the Libertarian Party, and he did get, obviously, he's gotten criticism from the left on his Israel stances, but he did get criticized by many Libertarian accounts as well. The Libertarian Party Twitter account criticized, actually invited his anti-interventionist supporters to abandon him and join the party. So if they're still talking, it is interesting. From his standpoint, this would make total sense that he said, I'm going to run as independent, and has looked at getting ballot access in all the states, which is extremely difficult. It is so difficult to do it. I'm sure Cornel West is figuring out the same thing. If you're attached to a party like the Libertarian Party or the Green Party, they already have access. They're already on the ballot. So there's some tactical reasons it makes sense to do that. So I wonder if he's seen the process and decided that if he really actually does want to be on all the, as he's sworn he will be on the ballot in all the states, maybe the Libertarian Party is looking more appetizing after all.
Well, I would say this. Unlike Cornel West, RFK Jr. does have the benefit of a multi-million-dollar super PAC that is aiding him in the process of getting ballot access. I mean, some states are relatively easy. Some states are relatively more difficult because of the number of signatures you need to get. The signatures are challenged. You got to do multiple rounds and over and over and over again. But it's not, I think, a mysterious process. It largely is elbow grease and manpower. Can you get enough people out in the streets with clipboards, collecting the signatures that you need, and do it quickly enough to get the process validated before election time rolls around? And so, I'm not exactly sure. It'd be interesting to hear from some of his surrogates about how that process is going. But it's not clear to me that he needs the Libertarian Party in the way that I would argue Cornel West. It's looking increasingly like he very much would benefit from an association.
But the
with
work's
Green
already
Party.
done. You could spend that time, money, and effort
Absolutely.
just, advertising yourself more generally.
But here's a fundamental problem. And I don't mean to shoehorn the Israel-Gaza discussion into every conversation, but it really is the motivating impetus for so much of how people are coming to their political views in this election season. When I look through the comments of news about this interview that we just showed with libertarian accounts, the Libertarian Party, other kind of sub-Libertarian Party groups weighing in on Twitter, a lot of people will bring up the fact that RFK Jr. supports genocide. RFK Jr. is a staunch Zionist. RFK Jr. is completely hypocritical when it comes to the issue of Israel, Gaza. And what does that mean for the Libertarian Party to choose as its candidate or to get behind someone who's so obviously, flagrantly disregarding such a core value of the party? I just don't know if they're going to be able to make that fit.
Well, and to be clear, it's not just up to the chair to decide. The Libertarian Party goes through a nominating process that I don't know all the details of. My colleagues at Reason who cover the Libertarian Party are far more knowledgeable about it. But he would have to go up against. There are other people pursuing the nomination, and he would have to win support from. I believe it's a delegate system that the Libertarian Party uses. So he's not going to just automatically be given it. And you're right that from a libertarian standpoint, both his foreign policy and his Israel position, and then also some of the other things you mentioned, including his support for student loan debt forgiveness and history of environmental law and
regulations.
Guns. Yeah, he is. By no means is he a perfect fit for the Libertarian Party, but that said, there is some enthusiasm for him among some of its leadership, and remains to be seen. It is appealing. Look, they had a lot of Libertarian Party members felt that the 2012 and the 2016 candidate, Gary Johnson, who's a former Republican governor of New Mexico. His vice president was Bill Weld, former Republican governor of Massachusetts. But almost a former Republican of a very, I would say, kind of never Trump ideology type. There were a lot of Libertarian members who felt that those two were not nearly Libertarian enough. Almost, despite both of them being Republicans, that they were too liberal or almost too progressive to be too reflexively anti-Trump in like an MSNBC kind of way that really grated a lot of Libertarian Party membership.
Sure, but that's not an ideological. Even that, like
I'm just saying it is nothing new for many Libertarian parties to be sucking up and putting up with a.
If Libertarians happen to like Trump and they don't like a candidate that has been too hard on Trump, that's like vibes. But being a libertarian and having someone ideologically who supports big government with respect to environmental policy and with interventionism, that's a huge.
Reagan-style Libertarians
inconsistency.
Reagan-style Libertarians said it was that ideologically Bill Weld supports big government and Gary Johnson supports big government. It was very.
Did they?
It was their. I'm not going to say who's right or who's wrong. It was their perspective.
I don't know, man.
I found the candidates underwhelming. I didn't think Gary Johnson did a great job campaigning. He had several notable. The most attention he got was the "What is Aleppo" thing. Remember that?
Right, of course.
So that was not great. I thought he was not a super effective communicator on our behalf. I like now the 2020 candidate Jo Jorgensen. I was perfectly libertarian. I thought she was great. She had no name recognition whatsoever. So that's the trade-off. Gary Johnson at least had some name recognition because he had been elected at the national level. Would you rather have someone who is in the conversation because they know them, even though they're not perfect from a libertarian standpoint? Or do you want someone who's
just doing a lot of work?
we had someone perfect last time, and they didn't get as much attention.
Wildly undermined core values of the Libertarian Party.
I mean, that's for them to decide.
It would be nice if any number of famous people could lend their name to the Green Party ballot line, but the Green Party can never host someone that was a warmonger, can never host someone that didn't respect Palestinian self-determination, can never host anybody that didn't support the right of health care in the United States of America. Otherwise, what does it even mean to win?
Yeah, I mean, that's the decision for the Libertarians to work out. I'm one of them, and I get to have as much say as anyone else, but we'll see how that goes. More Rising right after this.